Welcome back to Focus on Abilities. You're watching HTV. I'm Lex Frieden. Our guest today is Kay York. We're at the Ed White Elementary School. It's an HISD school off Gessner, and we're here in the great outdoors. We're talking with Kay York, who is a mental health advocate and also works here at the school. Kay, how long have you been at the elementary school?
At this particular elementary school, this is my 12th year, and I have to tell you, it's the longest place I've ever stayed because I really love this school.
Kay, do you work in special ed?
I do. I am the collaborative teacher with our special education department chair, and we serve kids that have learning disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, a variety of different disabilities.
Is that a typical program in HISD schools, or do you have some specialty here that brings kids from other parts of the district?
This campus does not. In fact, we have to send some of our students to some of those really particularly developed classes, especially for autism. So we're more generic than some of the other schools that, that's their specialty.
How many kids are in the school?
We have over 800 children on our campus.
Wow.
It's a large campus.
I think I've been through about half of them. And how many kids are in the special ed programs that you're involved with?
Well, there's speech therapy students as well as special education students, and speech therapy is under the special ed umbrella. So we have about 35 to 40 usually in our classes here.
Do you ever think about the contradiction between the words special ed and or special and the word integrated education or integrated programming?
I think as we evolve in our nomenclature in the disability world, I think integrated probably sounds more collaborative with the general education, and that's the one thing I really get anxious about when people use the word regular education versus special education. That's a shift that's taking forever for people to get out of the habit of saying regular education. So in general education, I think the integrated care, just like in medicine, integrated medicine, you don't often go to just one doctor, especially if you need a heart replacement and you have a GP. So I don't know what your experience has been. You're in the clinical model more than I am, but at least on the lay level, to me, integrated seems more collaborative.
So in this school, the kids who are in your particular classroom, and are they there all day, or part of the day they're integrated with other students?
Okay, that's a fabulous question, number one. It all boils down to what's called least restricted environment. And that comes in their individual education plan. All of our students that are identified for special education first have to go through something called a response to intervention process, RTI, and that's done by the intervention assistance team. And this has really been developing in the last 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And particular care is being placed on not over-identifying kids for special education. But once we do have them identified, then the parents have what's called an initial ARD meeting, admission, review, and dismissal. And then every year they have to have an annual review, and then only when the ARD committee chooses to dismiss that child from special education are they usually dismissed. Again, a lot of things are happening in education in the last couple of years that this would be my 41st year of teaching had I stayed in teaching my entire career. A lot has happened in the last 2 or 3 years. There's a huge push on inclusion now into the general education classroom. And the reason I like it, although we still haven't worked out all the kinks on how you can achieve 100% effectiveness on doing that, because it's taking the general ed teachers a while to get used to that. It's developing a whole new system, delivery system of going into the classroom and working as a cooperative teacher instead of the general ed teacher teaching all the kids. But the bottom line is, my belief has been, I knew someone who had an adult child with autism, and she used to always say, what's good for general ed, or back in those days, regular ed, is good, what's good for special ed is good for general ed. And that's the truth. We all can learn from one another, and our identified special ed students learn so much so many of the social skills nuances in the general ed classroom that they wouldn't ordinarily get in just a special education classroom.
Well, the other side of that is that the kids who are in the ordinary classrooms are also observing, working with, and understanding kids with disabilities better. I mean, years ago when kids would go to different schools,
Right.
I mean,
right.
there was no physical contact whatsoever. One would not be surprised if a kid could grow up and never have met a person
Exactly.
with a disability, and that created a lot of problems after people became adults because they didn't know how to behave in the community.
That's
but
correct.
now in the schools, and this is a good example, with these kids able to be part of the time in the special ed classroom, part of the time perhaps in the rest of the classrooms,
Right.
integrated with the kids at lunch and dinner
Exactly.
and during
That's
on
exactly
the
the way we do
playground
it.
and so on. That's a whole sea change because the non-disabled kids get to know that the disabled kids like to have fun too. They
Yes.
have the same dreams and hopes. They can get dirty like everybody else. It's a good changing environment. What other kinds of things, from your perspective as a mental health advocate, have changed since the passage of the ADA?
Because a broken brain, which is the terminology used sometimes for people with mental health issues, has even more stigma, I think, sometimes associated with it than when someone sees someone in a wheelchair or has an arm or a leg amputated. I think the amount of stigma has improved, but I think with regard to mental ill health and mental
Right.
illness, but we still have a long way to go. And the one statistic that I will tell you right now, last week was Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. The one statistic that's just so sad is that only 1/3 of the kids who have a mental illness have been diagnosed.
Wow.
So what happens then is those kids who might actually be observed by other teachers, administration, or behavior problems, they don't really understand that there might be an underlying mental illness.
They don't give them credit for having a disability and make accommodations as
Exactly.
they're required to do by law.
Exactly.
Let's talk more about that, but first I want to take a break here, Kay.
Okay.
Thanks for being our guest today, and thank you all for watching. We'll be right back with more Focus on Abilities.